I wanted to talk with you about 3 big no-nos that you want to avoid for all costs when dating Asian women. This is a very vocal subject, and I've been inspired by actually one of my subscribers because one of his recent comments pointed out a couple of points that I felt absolutely necessary to be discussed in a video, and that's why I shot this video today. His name is Roger, and he says, lived with 3 Filipino girls, married 1, divorced, my only marriage. My ex-wife is on husband 4. After a mere 4-year marriage and 15 years of child support and hundreds of thousands of dollars, I have learned my lesson. Why buy a boat or airplane? Just rent it for the weekend. Don't buy it. Don't pay for title, insurance, storage, gas, maintenance, licensing, repairs, etc. You don't have to agree. I like Roger's point here. And his experience was a very painful one because his bloodshed hopefully encourages a lot of men not to make the same mistake. Oftentimes in life, the only time when you can learn your lesson is when you actually encounter failure, when you actually make that mistake. And a lot of people believe that you can learn it or you can make it perfect from the very beginning without having made the mistakes. And unfortunately, that's not how it works. All right, let's get started with the 3 big no-nos that I wanted to discuss. First of all, don't ever bring her to your country just to get her a foreign passport, a better passport that supposedly helps her to travel to other places. Why am I saying this? Well, first of all, I've been in relationships with several Asian women, and I've learned my lessons as much as Roger has learned his lessons. And what I've learned is that I have not brought an Asian woman to a foreign country, but from what I know, from experience, from friends of mine, from people that I know, from people that my friends know, like I know a lot of people that decided, you know what, it was time for me to bring my Asian girl back to Europe. And that went well for a couple of years until they grabbed citizenship. Once they grabbed citizenship, once they became a citizen of the country where they were located, they divorced their husband. Now, did that happen every single time? No, of course it didn't. But it happened a fair amount of the time, well above 50% of the time, and that is an extremely high divorce rate. You know, if it happened like 70% of the time, meaning, 100% of these interracial marriages between white men and Asian women that, whether started or ended in the West, doesn't really matter. They only lasted for a couple of years. So the success rate is not very good. Your odds aren't very great if you do that. Now, why does this happen? Well, it's pretty simple. They want to get there so they can become a citizen, so they can have a better passport. Yeah, but that's not it. There's still more to it. They also want to bring their families to the West because for an Asian woman, her family is everything. Her family is worth a lot more to her than you are. And that's something that's very difficult for a guy to understand. It's very difficult to get your head around this because, we have a big ego and we want to think, and we always think that we are worth more than everybody else. We're special. Oh, this will never happen to us. Why would it happen to us? We have these beliefs, these mindsets, but they are delusional thinking patterns that don't do you any good. And I'm speaking from experience. If you bring her to the West, you may achieve the goal to get her on a better passport, but what good does it do if you're no longer together? Like, you helped her, but you got nothing to show for it. In fact, you only have financial loss. And of course, emotional loss. It is not a good thing to do, and the odds are just not in your favor. Now, does this happen every single time? Of course not. Are there interracial marriages between white men and Asian women that continued their mission in the West and, maintained a healthy balance? Of course, they exist as well. So I'm not trying to say that's 100% of the people, right? So don't think that I'm saying this because I'm not. But still, the odds are not in your favor. The odds are against you, and that's what you need to understand. I'm not saying that she's asking for it, because she wants to trap you. I don't think that, because they don't even know what life is like in the West. They kind of know. They kind of know that they're entitled to more things. They're entitled to free government money, to quantitative easing. They're entitled to that, so they know that, they're aware of that, but they don't even know themselves how their perception of life changes when they live in the West, because they've never lived in the West. You, on the other hand, you know that because you left the West to live in Asia because you're probably sick and tired of Western women because they're not feminine, they're not submissive. In fact, if you're dating a woman in the West these days, you are likely to date a man, because a Western woman a lot of the times has masculine qualities. You know, they don't have feminine qualities anymore. You know, they're not submissive, they're not feminine. You know, they run you over in every way possible, and 85% of divorces are initiated by women. That's the statistics, that's the data, that's not some number that I make up. And that's why a lot of white men are looking for women in the East or in Latin America, because they simply want to have a traditional role, you know, where you are the man, you're the provider, and the woman is the housewife, you know, or the house girlfriend, however you want to call her, you know, and she takes care of the kids, she takes care of the household. That's, you know, traditional conservative values that we're talking about here. But when you bring her back, what you're doing is you're turning her into a masculine woman, because the environment is set up in a way that she obviously has to become more masculine. That's what the West is all about. The West is all about equal rights. The West is all about prioritizing women over men. That's the situation we're in right now, and that's why so many people are desperate to leave. It's just how it is. It's the data. The data doesn't lie. The numbers don't lie. Another big no-no is to buy her expensive gifts. We're talking rings, accessories, special vacation trips, if you will. And why I'm saying this is because, and here's actually my personal experience. I'm going to be completely honest with you because I love being honest. And if I have made some of these mistakes, why wouldn't I tell you? I have nothing to hide. I'm just a human being. I make mistakes just like you make mistakes. I'm not some stupid creature that was brought to this planet to make zero mistakes. No, that's not how it works. I also make mistakes. And what happened to me was that I had a pretty good relationship with a Vietnamese woman, which went really well for a couple of years. You know, for I would say 3 years, you know, we worked together, we built a business together. She was working, you know, she was helping me with certain tasks, you know, and it worked so well, you know, and, you know, she was very hardworking. You know, we played together, we ate together, we did everything together, we slept together, everything together, right? And that was not a healthy relationship. But anyway, it died because there just wasn't enough fire there, and also because expectations increased over time. And the reason why expectations increased over time, because she saw how much money I was making in my business. Because how couldn't she? Because she was working on it, you know, she was having access to these figures, so she knew how much money I was making. And then all of a sudden there were just more demands, you know, there was more comparison going on. And then she started having high-class Vietnamese girlfriends that were in relationships with Western boyfriends that were rich, right? And they were always talking to her about, you know, oh, how good her boyfriends are, how good her husband is, you know, what they do for them, and how one of her friends' husband gifted her a house, a $300,000 house, to prove to her how much she is worth in his eyes. And that was the kiss of death. You know, once a girl gets exposure to this kind of stuff, it's almost impossible to reverse the vehicle, because they are now at a different level. I'm not saying that it's positive, but it is a different level of thinking where you believe that you're entitled to more because all the people around you have more, and you are like stuck there, and your boyfriend or your husband is not doing the same things that, you know, the husbands and boyfriends of your friends are doing for them. And that's something that's very difficult to swallow for an Asian woman, I think, because there's a lot of comparison going on in Asian culture, especially in Vietnamese culture, where the women just love to show off on Facebook. You know, they love to show what they have, you know, the vacation trips they take, you know, whatever house they have, whatever phone they have, they like to show it off. That's Vietnamese culture. That's when everything went downhill. That's when everything went to okay, and that was a big learning experience for me, because it's not something that I personally created. I mean, the business part, I created that, but the exposure she had to the new friends, that's something that she created, and that's something she got influenced by. There was no way to revert this. You know, I tried to talk her out of it, it didn't work. But what I'm trying to say is that if you train her, you know, then she's gonna want more and more of that. Like, if she knows that she can ask for an expensive ring, if you buy her a $10,000 ring, you know, that's good enough for now, and she's happy with that. Well, guess what's going to be next? It's probably going to be a car. You know, maybe a $30,000, $40,000 car. That would be the next step. And then the next step potentially be a home, you know, $100,000, $150,000 home. So you need to be very careful with what you agree to. Another thing that a lot of people would argue about, well, if we are married, I definitely want to buy her a decent ring because it kind of proves that we're in a serious relationship. Here's what I think about marriage rings. There's really no need for you to spend thousands of dollars on an expensive ring. Why? Because the ring does not guarantee a lasting marriage. It really doesn't. The wedding is just the occasion, you know, it's the occasion. It doesn't guarantee anything. You know, no matter how much money you spend on the wedding, it doesn't guarantee that your marriage succeeds. It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. And that's something you have to understand. So even if you spend 30 grand on the wedding, of course, you're going to get some of that back because, you know, the people bring the envelopes, they put in the money, and then they donate it back to you, you know, as a gift to show you that, you know, they're really a friend of yours and that they value that you guys get married. That's a way for them to contribute to your success. I understand it, but still you have expenditures. If you go on an expensive honeymoon trip, if you buy her an expensive ring, what I would do instead is I would tell her, you know what, if we're still together after 5 years, let's take a trip. Let's celebrate then. Because if we're still together after 5 years, we got a reason to celebrate. That's how you need to talk to her, and that's what I would do now if I had the chance. Again, I'm not looking to get married. In fact, I'm not in a relationship right now, so it's not really a concern to me personally, but if I was again in the same situation, that's what I would do. And after 10 years of marriage, of successful, happy marriage, you know, if you're both on the same page, you have a great time together, and you think like you could be together for a couple more decades to come, what you can do is you can simply tell her, now it's been 10 years, now I want to reward you with maybe something that's a little bit bigger to show you how much I appreciate the time that we've spent together over the past years. And then you could say, I'm going to buy you this ring, you know, buy her a ring, you know, worth whatever, you know, whatever you think is right. That's how I would go about it. Another big no-no is to buy property under her name. And that is a mindset that so many foreigners embrace because they themselves can't own property in a place like Vietnam or the Philippines, Thailand. Why? Because foreigners are not allowed to own land. Technically, you can own land in Thailand, but it requires the formation of a local company, and it's a very difficult procedure to get it done. It's not something that you want to get involved in. The easier way would be to get married or not get married and just put the land under your girlfriend's or wife's name. That's what a lot of expats do because it's the path of least resistance, they think. But the problem here is you put this under her name, and let's say you've only been together for a couple months or even a year. You know, it takes a good few years to really know a person. Like, just because you have fallen in love, just because you have butterflies in your stomach, you have a good feeling, whatever you want to call it, does not guarantee that you will be together for the next years. Doesn't guarantee anything. Now, what a lot of people would do is they would rush into it. They would just say, you know what, I want to buy a property. I can't do it, you know, for myself because I can't own land in the country. I'm a foreigner. I'm not allowed to own land. And so the only option I have if I want to own a property is to put it under my girlfriend's or wife's name, and that's what they end up doing. And a lot of the time they regret it because their marriage fails, their relationship fails, or maybe the woman was just not legitimate to begin with, you know, they only wanted the money, and once they got the property, you know, the guy goes on the trip, maybe flies back home, and then comes back after a few weeks to a few months, whatever he had to do back home, he comes back, and guess what's going to happen to the house? It's been sold. You know, there's so many stories like this. I'm not saying that this will happen to you, but there is a chance that it could happen to you. What you can do instead is rent. You know, renting in Asia is cheap anyway. I understand that you're not building any value, but you're also not losing a lot of money. And when you're really sure about it, if it's been a couple of years or maybe a decade, and then you feel like, you know, you can really trust her because of what she had shown to you during the past period, then it would be the right time or a better time for you to do it. What do you think about these 3 big no-nos? Leave a comment below and let us know. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'm uploading new videos on digital nomad locations, travel updates, visas, crypto advice, and business advice several times a week right now. I highly recommend that you grab a free copy of my ebook Nomad Elite, the Insider's Guide to Retaining a Life of Freedom. All you need to do is click on the link below the video. And if you got some more time left, check out these videos. Thank you for watching.